At the end of the day, it's always to me about community. We couldn't do it alone, and we're not meant to do it alone either.
Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Whitney from Peruvian Sisters. If this is your first time watching, just know that this is our last interview out of a series of 4. So be sure to tune in to the other 3 as well. Our last and final guest will be Vera. Veralucia Mendoza is a queer Afro-Indigenous migrant from the deserts of Peru blooming in the Midwest. Vera is committed to practicing Ancestral Futurism, imagining and working toward better futures based on ancestral relations and knowledge. They are a community organizer in Northwest Ohio.
We're basically just wondering how you've been doing through the pandemic.
I got to go to Peru after 18 years in December of 2019. But when I got there, I got really sick. And we're not sure what I had, but my doctors speculate that I might have had COVID or just some form of something that was in the air. I flew back to the States, and then in March, right, like everything's closing down because of a pandemic. So I haven't been able to see my mom since the pandemic started, or, lockdowns. And I want to give a shout out to all the immunocompromised and other folks with chronic illness, because we're out here taking care of ourselves, and usually it's Black and Latinx folks that deal with lupus, which is specifically what I have. So shout out to us for sticking it out. It's been a year of more dedication, and because things are virtual, I've been able to show up to more things than I would be able to physically. Which also meant that I stressed myself out a little more than usual, but we're making it through. We're getting through, and my dad, my sister, and I are all sticking together and being as careful as possible.
I love how you call yourself a cultural worker. So for people that may have never heard that term before, can you, in your own words, explain what it means to be a cultural worker?
So a cultural worker is, in a sense, a community organizer. What we're focused on isn't necessarily solely on what we imagine is political advocacy. The personal is political. And that means that through our art, through our conversations, through our daily relationships, and the way that we move through the world, we're working on shaping the culture around us to change specifically that mindset, and to shift from things that we've been taught as just the way things are in the world, to kind of zooming out and analyzing it and thinking about why we're taught to behave certain ways, carry ourselves certain ways, work certain ways, avoid rest in certain ways. So that's where I feel the most connected, is when I'm talking about culture and in reviewing why we do things the way we do. And then throughout the years, I've also been a community organizer in the more traditional sense of legislative action, direct action. I combine the two, I guess. To me, it's not different. I don't clock in and out. I wake up thinking about this, and I go to bed thinking about this, because it's not a thing that I get paid for to do. It's not like tasks that I get to check off and then somebody pays me for that. It's something that I deeply believe can change the spaces that we live in, and that can change the future that we create for ourselves.
Very eye-opening as well, for everything that you do, and how passionate you are. If you love what you do, you're never working a day in your life. When you're feeling unmotivated, what keeps you motivated, or what helps you stay on track?
The motivation, I think, can come and go really fast. It's more of the discipline of getting up to fulfill a promise to myself and to my community. At the end of the day, it's always to me about community. I moved here from Peru at 8 years old, And then I lived as an undocumented person for 14 years. So that to me meant that there was community care, that there was watching out for each other with, different families. I'm not a religious person, but I remember growing up in church and everybody would bring food, and we would have like a big potluck every Sunday afternoon right after service. So I grew up with this notion that we take care of each other. I just grew up knowing that we couldn't survive alone, that we couldn't do it alone, and we're not meant to do it alone either, especially as I learned more about the ways of life of Peru before colonization, before Spanish rule, and even as indigenous folks and African folks, right, who were enslaved and brought over, like I'm Afro-Peruana, just thinking about the ways that they survived through these brutal times. And it was through taking care of each other. And so to me, I wake up every morning and I just think about how that's just part of my role. And I don't think I've ever really, of course, there's been times where I'm like, I don't want to do this, or like, why should this be my role? Or why couldn't I just like do like corporate finance and like go buy myself a boat or something, But then I know that I wouldn't be happy because I know that like who I am inside is committed to my community.
I love what people are saying too, like, I'm not self-made, I'm community made. Because it's a whole journey of people helping you along the way.
But this land, was referred to as Abya Yala before we started calling it the Western Hemisphere and North and South America. And it was the condor, el condor de los Andes, and the eagle of the north, right, of Turtle Island that flew together. And to me, there's a commitment to this land, even if I am not indigenous to the global north. I know that my roots in the south, right, come from the Sierra of Peru and from Africa. And so I always grew up too with this knowledge of knowing that I was possible because there were communities of people that came together to take care of each other. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be here today.
What's the best part about being Peruana?
The food. I knew when we moved here from Peru, I was like, the food here is not
up to par.
Not up to par. And I just knew that we had the best food before I saw any magazine or world competition like confirm it for me. But I was just like, we are really creative. What the hell's happening here? Like why is your soup ready in 3 minutes? I was really confused. One thing I really love about being Peruvian is that we have such a rich history that goes back so many years, right? I don't think there's a lot of history that a lot of people can tap into, especially marginalized communities, almost as easily as Peruvians can. I can't track back a lot of information on my Black side of the family, particularly because they were labeled numbers, they weren't names, right? So I know that we have the last name Mendoza for about 7 generations. So that, of course, that wasn't the real last name of, the folks that were brought over. It was whoever owned the hacienda was Mendoza. There's other aspects of Peruvian culture, I think, that are so accessible, right? Like then I'm thinking about like Aini and the communities that they form, right? Like the Andean principles of living. I actually have it tattooed on my arm. Our music, right? Like saya, huayno, festejo, marinera, música criolla, it's like we really love our own culture, which is so cool because like in so many places, people just want to modernize.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And people want to shift into what's new and exciting, and usually whatever Hollywood prescribes, right? And there's definitely aspects of Peru that are like that. But also, if you want to find other things, you can. If you just want to like listen to pan flute all day, you can. Like my papi played with Peru Negro, and with Pepe Vasquez. I called him mi tío Pepe. So I always grew up knowing about like the mixture of heritage that we carried. And I thought that was so exciting. I like to imagine the lives that were lived, you know, on the land that I grew up on.
What is a woman-owned business that you would want to recommend to us or to anybody who's watching?
I'd really like to highlight Chica Afro-Peruana just because she's so smart and she's got so much important things to say. She is consistently tackling issues of race in Peru, which is a hard conversation to have, considering we still do blackface, and we tend to lean into the whole, well, we're all mixed thing, and it's like, yeah, we are, but also like there's a reality of racial caste and racist tendencies.
If you can give any tips or advice for any Peruvian Peruana, anyone that wants to be in your shoes one day, what would you tell them?
Always connect with your community. Always connect with what you see people around you needing, and think about the ways that you can help meet those needs. We can't change the world, but I'm thinking of the words of Clarissa Pinkola Estes. You know, our duty is to stretch out our arms and change the things we can within that arm's length. But that also means we have to stretch. So I'm just thinking about her words, and we really can't, you know, shift everything all at once, but if as many of us as possible stretch out our arms and work to make changes within that arm's length, a lot of things could progress much quicker than we thought they could be done.
There you have it. We hope you all enjoyed our first interview series. We hope this was a great learning experience for you all. We know it was for us. Let us know what you thought about our latest project. Be sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at Peruvian Sisters. And as always, we'll continue making content para la comunidad.